Abby and AJ, two very odd people, come together, and they find each other and they somehow click. Like, they have that rare thing that I think also Russ and Lina have, but in a stranger way, where they're willing to let it all hang out, and it doesn't freak the other one out at all. And yeah. He's sober, he's celibate, he's dedicated to helping women rehabilitate themselves. He also gets a literary bug going, which I won't get into that much, but he has a lot of time on his hands. He's unemployed. So, I get bought out by my firm, so I'm essentially fired. And so I have a lot of time on my hands, and I fill it with a lot of crazy things. It's been really fun because AJ just gets himself into a lot of strange situations and has a lot of crazy schemes that he's trying to make up for the fact that he used to be a drug and sex addict, but he's trying a little too hard. So he's creating new problems. Yeah. We all have regrets. And we all make mistakes. So focusing on the pain of that, and then the need, I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. So it's not hard to, and been in some dark places. So that was all rehearsal or all research rather for this. And I was thinking the other day of oh, thank God high school was so awful, because it just gave me a real treasure trove of things to use in my acting. So it's cool. In this episode, I am trying to help women out who have lost their way. So a lot of it is dedicated to trying to help this webcam girl become active with hearing impaired children who are hearing impaired, which is her dream. But she has a bit of a problem following up on that dream, and following through with that dream rather. And but then I'm successful, and then right now I'm trying to pick up prostitutes to not have sex with, but help turn their lives around. But it feels very much like I'm picking them up to have sex with them. AJ can't really do anything without it being somewhat creepy. Yeah. I think that drugs and alcohol will kill you, but the trajectory of destruction is much clearer. It usually happens in very much the same ways for everybody. Whereas if you're sober and you're not checking the personality traits that led you to wanting to use, and the things that you were numbing out all those years, if you don't deal with those, you can project those onto other things and become just as obsessive and compulsive with that. The good thing about that is that's not going to kill you. So that's the whole thing. When people, it's just like people who are in AA. People that's a criticism sometimes of Alcoholics Anonymous. The people are just addicted to AA now. Yeah, but better to be addicted to AA than be addicted to alcohol or drugs, because AA is not going to end your life. They're still very close. However, Russ has, I think, put some boundaries up to not allowing himself to get sucked in so much into AJ's schemes. That's what Bernie is there for. Bernie becomes very much like AJ's partner in crime this season, because Bernie is up for anything. He's like a walking id, so AJ can always rope him in. But we're still close up. There's one point where AJ, a storyline starts in the second season where AJ wants to write a children's book about addiction called Farmer Todd Has a Problem. And so he becomes very obsessed with publishing that book. And he tries to get Russ to illustrate the book for him, but Russ won't do it. And it almost destroys their friendship. But then they work it through, because in the end, nobody is so destructive that they're going to ruin everything in their life. Everybody everybody in this show goes to the brink, but then turns it around. Tons of fun. There's nothing more fun than bad behavior, as long as you don't get burned too bad. This is something that everybody can relate to somewhat, and even if you're not married, if you are in a relationship, there's going to be problems, but love will see you through if the love is there. So I think that's what the show's about. And so I hope that people really, even more people watch it. And it means a lot to me when people tell me that they love the show and love me on it. I mean, come on. I don't think it's down on marriage. I don't think it sees marriage as grim. I think it's saying marriage is hard sometimes, and you need love to get through that. And I don't think that there is ever a lack of love between Russ and Lina, ever. They're both complicated people. But I think it's very optimistic that the show says, even if you're really complicated, you can have somebody that you really connect with. And I think that can be, if people really commit to watching it from that viewpoint, I think it can be a really healing show, because you're like, oh, well, if I fight with my husband or wife, or boyfriend or girlfriend, it's not the end of the world. If they're mean, if we make mistakes, it doesn't mean that it should end, because as long as there's a connection still there, everything's going to be okay. And there's always a connection between Russ and Lina. It gets a little challenged in the end of season 1, but they overcome it. And in this season, that whole dynamic is celebrated even more, which is a really nice thing. And the same thing goes for the friendships, because we definitely, their friends definitely put them through the ringer too. So it's great, because that to me makes people feel less alone. Because a lot of people have a lot of flaws and they're not perfect. Most of us are not. Barbie and Ken, we're very flawed individuals, and the show is saying even if you're flawed, you can have love. It just might not look like a fairy tale.